Hi, I'm Richard Hooper. I am a Systems Architect and Information Security Officer. You may know me as Pixel Robots. You can find me on Twitter at pixel_robots, or you can also check me out on my blog, https://pixelrobots.co.uk. In this video, I am going to create a role-based access control AKS cluster using Terraform. But before I can create the AKS cluster, I need to get some prerequisites in place. As you can see from the slide, we need to have Terraform installed on our computers. You can follow the link for a guide on how to do that. Secondly, we need to get a service principal account created from Azure AD. If you follow this link, you will find my guide on how to do this. Thirdly, we need to get an Azure Storage account created. Again, follow the link and you'll find a guide on how to do that. Lastly, we need to create an SSH key for the Linux VMs. Again, follow the link for a guide on that. Now that we have all the prerequisites out of the way, we can crack on and start to create the AKS cluster. AKS with RBAC needs two applications created in Azure AD. The first one is a server application. The second is a client application. I like to use the Azure portal to create these. It gives me a bit of familiarity and a bit of feedback. And it's just what I like to do. You could potentially do it via scripting, but I won't be showing you that. First, we're going to create the server application. So if we log into the Azure portal, and then if we click on Azure Active Directory, in this blade, we need to then click on App Registrations. We then click New Application Registration. In here, we enter a name, so we could use RBAC-AKS-server. We then leave it as web app/API, and then we enter a sign-on URL. You can choose anything you want. I'm just going to use my blog. Once that's all correct, we get a couple of green ticks. We then click Create. We've now created our RBAC AKS server app. Now we just need to configure it. So to do that, click on Manifest. In the Edit Manifest section, find Group Membership Claims. At the moment it says Null. We're going to change that so it says All. Making sure we put it in speech marks. Once that's done, click on Save. You will see that it says Successfully Updated Application. Now we need to click on Settings and then Keys. Here we need to enter a description for our key. So I'm just going to use RBAC-AKS-server. We then set the duration of expiry to never expires and then click Save. As you can see, the value has been automatically generated for us. We need to create a copy of that because as soon as you leave this page, it will go. So just open up Notepad or something and paste it into there like that. Now we need to click on Required Permissions. We then click on Add, select an API, Microsoft Graph, then click Select. In this list of application permissions, if we scroll down quite a far away, we will find Read Directory Data. Put a tick in that. Then if we scroll down a bit further to delegated permissions, we need to find the one that says sign in and read user profile. So it should be in here somewhere, probably near the bottom. Sign in and read user profile, just there. There's a lot. It can get confusing trying to find the one you want. So once you've got both of those ticked, we click on Select and then click on Done. Now we have to grant the permissions This one's nice and easy. Just click on grant permissions and then click yes. Once that's done, we need to take a copy of the application ID, which will be here. I've just blurred it out at the moment. Let me just unblur it. So we just take a copy of that. Just blur that again. And we paste that back into our notepad. So now we have our server app created. It's time to create our client app. To do that, if we go back to Azure Active Directory and then click on App Registrations again, and then click on Add Application Registration. In here, we can use any name we like. So for this, I'm going to use RBAC-AKS-client. For the application type, we need to click Native. In the redirect URI, we can type in our blog address again or any other web page you like. So this one is my blog. Once that's done, 2 green ticks again and click Create. Now we need to configure the client app. To do that, we click on Settings and then click on Required Permissions. We then click on Add, and then we click on Select an API. We then search for our server API we created earlier, so RBAC dash, and it's already popped up. So we click on that and then click Select. We make sure we have a tick in this box and then click Select again and then click Done. Now we have to grant permissions once more. So we click on Grant Permissions, click on Yes again. Once that's granted permissions, we need to get our application ID again. So let me just show that again. We take a copy of the application ID. I just blur it out again. And we paste that into our notepad again. So that's the client application created. One more bit of information we need is the tenant ID. To get that, we can go back to Azure Active Directory. Scroll down this list until we see Properties. It's in there somewhere. There it is. Let me just unblur again. And this is our tenant ID. It's under the heading Directory ID. I've taken a copy of that. I will just blur it again and save that into my notepad file. So now we have everything we need to create our AKS cluster using Terraform. Now it's time to edit the Terraform files. You can find all the Terraform files in my Git repo. The link is below in the description. You can find all the other links from the prerequisites there too. Once you have all the files downloaded, it's time to edit the variables.tf file. We need to copy in all of the IDs from previously. This also includes the service principal IDs from the prerequisites. So to do that, we are just going to copy and paste from our notepad before. So the client ID is the service principal ID. Then we have the client secret, which is the service principal secret. Then we have the tenant ID. Then we have the RBAC server app ID. We then have the RBAC server app secret. And then we have the client app ID. You can then look down the file and you'll see the prefix variable is pixelrobots-RBAC. You can change this to anything you want. It's just what the resources are going to be named. We then have East US as the location. I've just chosen this because it's cheapest. Then we have the path to where the SSH key is. So this is in my C drive, IAC, Terraform.ssh, and that. Then we have a username for the Linux VMs and what version of Kubernetes we want to install. So once you've edited this file, save it. Now it's time to configure the backend.tf vars file. To do that, if you're using VS Code, we just open the file, and if you've pulled it down from my Git repo, you'll see some values already in there. What we're going to do here is from the storage account we created in the prerequisites, we're going to fill in this information. So in my notepad file from before, my resource group name is Terraform-states. My storage account name is Terraform states and a random number. My container name is Terraform state-tst. My access key is this crazy long thing. Now for the key value, this is going to be the name of the Terraform state file. So for here, I'm just going to use RBAC / pixel robots RBAC AKS.tf state. So the RBAC / is going to create a folder for us in the storage account. So I'm going to save that, and then I'm going to open up a Windows for Linux subsystem bash window and type some commands to start initializing Terraform. In our bash window, we're going to navigate to the path where our Terraform files are. So to do that, we're going to cd/mnt/c/iac/terraform. So now we're in here, we can do a quick ls to make sure we're in the right directory, which we are. And it's time to initiate Terraform. So to do that, we can use Terraform init, and then we're going to use some backend configuration that we just completed. So backend-config equals backend.tf vars. Hit enter, and we're going to start initializing Terraform. As you can see, it's successfully configured the backend AzureRM because that was in our main.tf file. It's downloading some plugins and it's successfully initialized. So we're really close to actually deploying the AKS cluster using Terraform, but before we go ahead and do that, I'm just going to go over the main.tf file quickly. So in here we have the provider AzureRM with version 1.5 or greater, and then the backend we're using AzureRM. So this main.tf file is basically going to create a resource group. It's going to use the prefix from the variables.tf, which is pixel robots -RBAC, and it's going to add -AKS on. It's going to get the location from the variables file also, East US. We're then going to create a virtual network, same again with the prefix, and we're giving it an address space of 10.101.0.0/16. You can change that to whatever you need for your setup. Next, we're going to create a subnet, which is called internal with that IP range. Then we go on to create the actual Kubernetes cluster. Again, we're using the prefix in several places with the -AKS at the end. And here we pick out which version of Kubernetes to install. Next, we add in the username for the Linux VMs and the SSH key to gain access if required. We then set up the agent pool for the two, as you can see here, two Linux VMs we're going to use in our cluster. We're going to pick out which size to use, what OS type, and what size for the OS disk. We're then going to have the VNet subnet -ID here This is basically just to say we're going to use advanced networking and to use the above stuff. Then we have the service principal information, then some tags. So I'm just calling it environment test because we're just testing here. Then we're going to add in the Azure Network plugin profile. And then this is where we configure the RBAC stuff. So this is just using the variables.tf file, and all the information is being pulled from there. Enabled equals true. If you don't have that, then it's not going to work. So once we've got all that sorted and you've configured that to how you want, back in the bash shell, we're going to log into our Azure environment using AZ login. This has taken me off to a website to log in. I'm going to pick my account. Back in the bash window, you can see that I have a few subscriptions. Some are disabled and one's live enabled. So now we can actually test our Terraform files using Terraform plan-out.plan. This is going to basically run through all of our Terraform files, find out what it needs to create, what's already there, what it may need to destroy, and create our TF state file. As you can see from the output, Terraform plans to create 4 new items and change none and destroy none. So we haven't got any errors. We can actually apply it using the command that they nicely put here for you. So what we're going to type is Terraform apply out.plan. Depending on how many nodes you're going to implement in the cluster or however many resources, this could take a little while. It usually takes for me in this setup about 6 minutes. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to let it run through for a bit, and when it gets to a certain point, I'll pause the video until it's finished. So we now have our AKS cluster, which is being deployed using Terraform, but we still need to configure RBAC. To do this, we need to basically create a cluster rule binding and a cluster rule. We're going to use a YAML file for this, which is in the Git repository under the folder K8s. So to do that, if we go back to Visual Studio, and then under the K8s file, we have 2 YAML files. So you can use a user, and in here you just change the email address to the user's email address, or the way I prefer to do it is using a group. So in here, basically, you have to add in the group ID here. You can find that from the Azure AD. So if we go back to here, and then go to Azure Active Directory, and then under groups. If you don't have a group already, create a group, but I'm going to use my AKS admin group. I will click on that. And we have this object ID here. So I'm going to highlight the object ID and copy it. Go back to my RBAC AAD group YAML file and paste it into here, and then save it. Navigate back to your bash window and type in AKS get credentials resource group. So this will be the resource group that we created using the Terraform file. So in this video case, it will be pixel robots RBAC AKS, and then we need to put the name, so --name pixel robots RBAC AKS. So that's the name of the cluster we created, and then we use this flag --admin. So basically this is going to connect up to the AKS cluster with the admin tag. So it's just merged the config file into our .kube config file on our local machines. So now we can use the kubectl. So let me just clear the screen so we have a nice fresh one. First we need to navigate to our K8s folder. So to do that we go cd ... cd k8s. If we do an ls, we'll see there are 2 YAML files in there. So to apply the group YAML file, we're going to use the kubectl command as stated earlier. So it's kubectl apply -f for file RBAC-AAD-group.yaml. This will go ahead, check the file and start applying it to our cluster. As you can see here, we've created our cluster role binding. Now we can actually connect to the cluster using RBAC. So now that we have configured the cluster to use RBAC, it's time to get some non-admin credentials. To do that, we're going to use the AKS get-credentials resource-group pixel robots-RBAC-AKS with the --name pixel robots-RBAC-AKS, and then we'll hit enter. This should go off and merge the non-admin credentials to our .kube-config file, which it has. We can now check how many nodes we have running by using kubectl get nodes. This will now tell us to sign in to our Kubernetes cluster using the device login. So we copy this URL, open a new tab, and we need to enter the device login code. So we go back and copy that code, paste that into there. As you can see, it's got the RBAC-AKS-client app registration we created earlier. Click continue. Sign in with our user account. It says we have signed in, so we can now go back to our bash window. And as you can see, we have 2 nodes in our AKS cluster. And that's it. We've created an AKS cluster with RBAC control using Terraform. I hope you found this video helpful. If you do have any questions, please reach out to me via Twitter or via my blog. And thanks for watching.